So anytime I pull up this checklist and I refer to this first item here about printing the revised pages and giving people a heads up the pages are coming, the people I'm talking about I've listed here. And this is going to vary from show to show, but in general, the people we're going to sort of want to know when pages are coming. You're going to have the director of the episode, and again, I don't want to get too bogged down here to it in the weeds, but just to give you a general sense of who all these people are. With the director of the episode, the way it works in TV in general is a lot of times the director is going to come in, they're going to direct one episode, and they're going to leave. And if they're a first time director of the show, they're not going to be very familiar with the crew or the cast or anything like that. So the first AD is sort of the quarterback of everything that's happening. They're the right hand man to the director. So that's going to be kind of a key person in production, there for you. Second AD is going to be kind of the right hand man to the first AD. Then you have the DP, who's the director of photography. They work very closely with the director on, how they're going to shoot everything. Then you have Scripty, who's the script supervisor, and that's someone who you, as the script coordinator, are going to work pretty closely with. And even though your titles sound similar, you do completely different jobs, but they basically are the person on set who is making sure that the actors are, saying the lines, and also keeping the continuity of everything that's happening. They actually are pretty amazing. I could never do that job. Then you have your UPM, which is unit production manager, and your line producer. They're kind of the people who are sort of in charge of production. They're kind of the bosses. Sometimes they're going to want to know, sometimes they're not going to care if pages are coming, but in general, these are kind of key people you want to be aware of. And then you certainly want to let whoever like the PA is in the production office who's going to have to print out the scripts and handle distributing them. It's kind of nice for them to know if pages are coming, and the production secretary as well, because um, you know, if they're going to have to print out pages and distro them, they may want to keep a couple extra people around to help them do that. And it's more helpful to them if they know pages are coming, so they know if they need to keep someone around or not, basically. So those are kind of just the key people you're going to want to give a heads up when pages are coming. And these people, like the first and second AD and the scripty, uh, anyone who's specific to the episode, they're gonna rotate usually based on odds and evens. What that means is like the first and second AD on evens would do episode 102, 104, 106, 108 if you had like a 10 episode show, and then you'd have a separate team of like first and second AD and scripty and the DP and stuff like that who would be doing the odds, because basically like when the even ADs are shooting, they're shooting, but then when an odd episode is shooting, the even people are prepping. So they're in that week of prep meetings leading up to shooting. So they're just going to rotate because they can't do it. They can't shoot every single episode unless you're on like a longer schedule. I don't like on one of these streamers. But usually, yeah, it's going to rotate with odd and even episodes. And by the way, Scripty is usually a neat, like after you publish the PDF, Scripty, whoever the script supervisor is covering that episode, they're usually going to need an FDX, a final draft file of whatever script you publish, because they use like a program on set to be able to track, I don't know, whatever they track, the cast saying the words and stuff. So yeah, usually they'll just need a final draft version of the file. So that's not like a. Just want to be careful who you send a final draft file to, because it's usually only going to go to like the people get the work in progress file who are doing the next draft. Um, just so you know that yeah, Scripty asking for final draft file isn't something you need to be worried about. That's a very normal request. And if you're ever in a situation where you have to put out pages that are going to shoot that day or imminently, I'll usually send like I'll send the pages to like the director the first and second AD and the scripty, um, I'll just like send them a PDF, like as soon as I can, as soon as I get the pages, I'll send them a PDF and I'll say like I'll proof it, but I'll say like, I'm gonna put out an official distribution momentarily, but like I wanted you to have the pages as soon as possible because like cast is generally not gonna be super happy about getting changes that day because they've prepared already and they've kind of read the pages and now things are getting changed up on them. So you just want to give not only cast everybody, the DP, everybody, you want to just give them as much of you want to give them as much lead time as possible. So again, that's why I'll just like slip the pages to the first and second AD and scripty and the director to say like this is what's coming out. It's going to be an official distribution soon, but wanted to get the pages as soon as possible. So the showrunner sent us the blue revisions. So first thing I'm going to do is when we consult our checklist here, print revised pages to see what you are dealing with. So we're going to imagine we are in production at this point. We're in prep. So I would have already emailed, some of the key people in production to let them know pages are going to be coming. And I'm just going to take a look. I'm going to go to revise pages only. I don't really worry about revision set. Sometimes, like we're on blue right now, sometimes if we get to pink, it might make you choose revision set or otherwise it might print out any pages that have even been revised in the past. But for now, we'll just do revised pages. In that case, you would have to choose revision set if you wanted to see the new revisions. But for here, we'll just do revised pages only. Save. So we just want to see how many pages it's going to be. So it's only be 4 pages. That's a pretty, in reality, it's almost always going to be more than that. But for, purposes of showing you some stuff here, we're just going to say it's 4 pages. So right now when I'm scrolling, I'm just looking up here in the header. If I were doing this for real, I'd be using script compare like we talked about. But since I've already showed you that, we don't need to do that here, but you should probably always be using script compare when you're looking at, the current draft versus the previous draft. I won't do that here because I want to be able to show you some other stuff. So I'm just looking at the header to see if any of these have changed to blue whip, because I'll know that means that page has been revised. So I'm just scrolling here. I don't see any revision marks on the side until we get to here. So it looks like they have added a scene. Don't pay attention to the content of this scene because it won't make sense. I just did some copy and pasting to show you how you add a scene. So they've added a scene here. Now, a few things with this scene. First off, production doesn't really like moments later is fine, whatever, but they want to see they want to know if it's day or night. They don't know about evening, afternoon, morning, dusk, none of that stuff. Just if you're in production, you're like, just tell me if it's day or night. That's all I need to know. So we're gonna let them know that this is a night scene and it's still night 3. Because this is night 3, and this is night 3, so the scene in between is going to be night 3. Now, how do we number this scene? When you add a new scene, it's not going to be 6A. It's going to be A7. That's just the standard scene numbering convention. I guess, I don't know, if your AD or your boss or whoever tells you they want this to be 6A, do what they say, but in terms of how you're kind of supposed to do it or the standard way of doing it, this is A7, not 6A. And it's not done by, it has nothing to do with content. So like this scene takes place in the green room and then they've added a walk and talk in the hallway. It's not like because this is a continuation of scene 6, it doesn't become 6A. The content doesn't matter. It just becomes A7 because all that matters is the numbering. The content doesn't matter. So we're just going to go here and we're going to make this scene A7. So we've made that A7. Now we're going to save that. What has happened is that has created an A page. A pages, there's technically nothing wrong with them again, I say technically, but you want to try to eliminate them whenever you can, and I'll show you what I mean. Because page 7 is the end of the act. So all that matters is that what's happening is still in the right order. You don't have to have this. It's better to not have this A page if you don't have to, because it's one less page that has to be printed. It's one less page on set that production has to deal with. So we're going to try something here. We're going to undo revision mode because we're not actually changing any of the content. I'm going to Command X cut this. So I'm at the top of page 7 now. And I'm going to paste this. And see if that, so they got rid of the A page, but it didn't actually change any of the content. All it did was take the stuff that was going to be on the A page and put it on page 7. Now, end of Act 1 has fallen off, and we will deal with that momentarily. So we are going to make one revision mark here, just so this shows up as blue. Oh, yeah, it's because revision mode is not on. So we're going to make a revision mark so this does show up as, because this is a new page, it's going to have to be printed. This is already going to be printed, this page. So one way to bring this up is what I don't want you to do. You could highlight this part, and you could go to leading, and instead of regular, you could choose tight or very tight. I'll show you what it looks like. It basically just crunches the dialogue, and that didn't even actually work. So you could either do leading again and choose like very tight, and it still didn't work to pull that up. And you could highlight as much of this as you want, and try to pull it up by tightening it, and that did pull it up. It's kind of cheating, and showrunners don't really generally like for you to do that, in my experience. I'm not saying I've never done it, because if you obviously can't just leave this end of Act 1 sitting here like this. You're not going to want to print a whole A page for just this end of Act 1 line. So I'm not saying I've never crunched dialogue or crunched, crunch stuff like that before, but whatever. You should just not do that. The other thing you can do is you just click on this end of Act 1, you go to Format, Leading, and automatically, space before, automatically is going to put 2. If you just choose 1, that brings it up, and no one really cares if there's only one space here, before the act out. So now you've eliminated that A page, and you made everything look nice and neat. All right, so we're just going to continue to scroll through. Looks like we have another A page situation here. Here is a different situation, though, because we basically have nowhere to put this. Like, I think this is an A page we're just going to kind of have to live with, and that happens. Again, there's nothing wrong with A pages, technically, but if you can eliminate them whenever possible, it's better to do so. So, like I said, we're going to imagine that we are in prep, which means that production meetings have started. As a script coordinator, you should absolutely ask your boss if it's okay for you to sit in on the production meetings. One, it's really good experience for you, because you're learning how to participate in prep, which unfortunately a lot of writers don't even get that experience anymore. If they're on a show where they're done before prep ever starts. And 2, it's good. It's showing initiative and all that stuff. And it also just kind of helps you with your job. So you're going to go to these meetings and you're going to take notes on stuff. And I would have like hard copy folders of for each episode. So like this is the 102 meeting. So I would have my 102 folder there. And I would always just, before I put any script out, I'll go consult my hard copy notes. And then, I'll see like, they meant to change this from what does this say? They meant to change it to cookies. Obviously, I can't show you like hard copy on this video. But let's just imagine this, like I highlighted berries and they want to change berries to cookies, and they forgot to do that here. So I will help them out and do it for them. Right here. So we're just gonna make this cookies. So again, you're gonna have your binder, and you're always gonna have your hard copy notes that you're gonna consult before you publish anything, because as a good script writer, you will have gone to the production meetings. All right, we're going to do our format assistant saying elements should not be blank. Let's see what happens if we let Final Draft fix it. Sometimes this gets wonky. Dialogue should not be immediately preceded by. That's the ones we ignore. So I just want to go see what it did. Because sometimes, I guess there was just some extra blank space here that it fixed. That's fine. See how our scene numbers look. A7's in there. That looks good. And again, you're just going to scroll through, make sure all these look good. Everything is grand. All right. So before we print that, we're going to make our header change. So we're going to scroll down to our blue whip page. So let's see, we decided that this was June 11th was the production draft. So let's say that June 12th is the blue work in progress. We're not going to go to document header and footer because that's still just going to say collated revisions. So that's fine there. To change our header and footer, we actually have to go to the revisions menu. And now we're going to change what this says. So blue, I would just call it blue. I would say blue pages. We do a hyphen and then 6-12-23. Revised pages only. Okay. Okay to that. So see now our header looks right. So now we're gonna go and that menu, that revisions menu, you're not gonna go to the next revision set until we set up the next working file, you know, for the pink pages, which would be the next one up. We're just sticking with our blue revision set for publishing this. This is just our pages. So then we can go then we can print our whole script, revise pages, because we're gonna have to publish 2 scripts. For now, we'll do that like that. We'll leave this open. Now we need to open our title page. Right here. First of all, we're gonna call this blue pages. Then we're gonna write up here June 11th, 2023, and this actually should be left justified. So as we put out more and more drafts, you're going to list the dates that each of these were published. So blue is going to be June 12th. So when we put out our pink, which would be the next revisions after this, then we would list the blue here under the production draft. And again, all these margins are already set up for us in this title page. So actually, we are not going to change this page because we didn't make any changes to the cast or set list. We're going to delete that. Had we made changes to the cast or set list, then we would change, you know, we would change this to blue to match the blue changes in the header on the script. But because we didn't make any changes here, we don't need to change that header. What we need to do, we need to list our revised pages over here. All right, so we said this was the blue. So this is just listing what our revised pages are. So we can actually, so we just have to list the page numbers here. So 2, 6, 7, 8, 8. Say you had, like, you would revise 6 through like 15. You probably could just do 6-15. You don't need to write like 6, 7, 8, you know. Some shows feel like you should write each individual page number since people are going to be collating each page. I don't know, they feel like it's important to see that each specific page number was included here. Kind of a gray area. So 2, 6, 7, 8, and 8A are 5 pages. Okay, so we can now print this. So we're going to grab our naming convention. Before I started the video, I made the file path for the blue script. I don't think you needed to watch me do that again. So we're going to go over here. We'll get our naming convention from here. Blue finals. Minimize that. We're going to make our collated draft first. Title page. Hide sidebar. All right, 102. We're going to call, this is going to be the 12th is going to be the date. And then we're going to call this blue collated. It's important that you don't label the file as like, even though it's the full script, it's important you don't label it as like blue full, because a full actually indicates something else that we'll go over in a subsequent colored draft. It's important that you call it collated and not full. So now we're going to grab this naming convention for, so we've got our revised pages here. It's only 5 pages. Thumbnails, we're going to put this in here. Now what we're going to do is, because we didn't make any changes to the cast list, the set list, or the day-night breakdown, we don't need to include those. We don't need to publish those as revised pages. All we need is this first page. The title page always has to go, because it's going to indicate like what color draft it is and all that. So we can delete this page. I'm sure I could have highlighted all 3 of these, but sometimes preview gets a little wonky. Delete. Hide sidebar. So we're going to call this, instead of blue pages, we're going to call this, instead of blue collated, we're going to call this blue pages. All right, now we're going to put both of these in our finals folder. So before we can publish, we need to make sure that our pages collate correctly. So we need to open our pages, this side, and then we need to open our collated version, which we will put on this side. All right, so before we even look at whether the pages collate correctly, we need to make sure that everything, all the numbers that we listed here as being the revised pages, we need to make sure that they all correspond to what revised pages actually got printed. So I'll just scroll through. So 2, 6, 7, 8, 8A. Because it's only 5 pages, pretty easy to, make sure that they're all here and they'll correspond. If it's like 15, sometimes I'll scroll down and then I'll scroll back up and say the numbers out loud again. Whatever you have to do to make sure that the revised pages we say we're publishing are what we're actually publishing. Next thing we're going to do is make sure the pages actually collate correctly. And what you'll see through the magic of a little editing here, I've pulled up the production draft because remember when you're making sure that the pages collate correctly, you need to make sure they collate into the previous draft that went out. Because that's what, someone is going to physically have the production draft or whatever the previous draft is, and then they're going to get these blue pages. Or if it's pink pages, they're going to have their blue draft. And they're going to be, when I say collate, that means they're physically going to be like removing page 2 from the white production draft and putting in the blue page 2. Doing the same thing with all these pages. So that's why you always, when you make sure that it collates correctly, you need to do that by using the previous draft. Like I wouldn't look at blue pages and blue collated to make sure it collates correctly. I actually need to go back to the previous draft because that's what people are going to be physically collating into. So we're just going to scroll down here, page 2 on this side. And it starts with you ready to do this, you ready to do this. And it goes down to wants to be like him, so that still collates correctly. So now we're going to go to page 6. Starts with this scene, Dodger Stadium green room night, great. And this goes to page 7, the end of the act, then page 8, and all the way to 8A. So starts with the right scene, and then 6, 7, 8, and then this ends with sitting at her desk, which now is 8A, sitting at her desk. So that all collates correctly. In defensive final draft, I always do this double check to make sure the pages collate correctly, because if they didn't, that'd be kind of a disaster. But in defensive final draft, I've never had the pages not collate correctly. So now we are able to publish, and again, the last thing we're going to verify is that our header is right, because we know that if our header is right, that means that all the other changes we made are already locked in, because the header is the last thing we check. So when you go to, send these out, it's just going to be one email. No more of this, like, with the production draft, you remember you sent 2 emails where it was like, here's the collated or here's the clean and the starred version. Now it's no more of that. You're in colored revisions. Everyone has seen the pages. Now it's just you're sending 2 scripts, but here's the collated and the revised pages. And again, like if we were shooting, you would indicate in your email in the subject line, this affects tomorrow or this does not affect tomorrow. Because we're just in prep at this point, we're not actually shooting. We don't have to indicate that. So we can close out of these. And then we're going to do the same thing for making our next work in progress file that we did for blue. Except this is going to be pink because that's our next color and the color progression. Pink whip, we're going to go to current working draft. We're going to put it, open it, bring it over here. All right, so we're going to go to production, revisions. We are going to go to add a new revision set. We're going to call this pink whip. Again, it needs to be in color as much as it doesn't want to. And like the changes don't need to show up, like because it's pink, they don't have to be pink. The changes can just always show up in blue. It just needs to be a color that you're going to be able to distinguish from black. So whatever color you like to have. Because when you publish this, no one's going to be seeing the revisions to the script in pink font or in blue font, so it doesn't matter. It's just for you to be able to tell when you're working on the script. So we're going to go to the next revision set. All right, so now we're on the pink revision set. Let's just double check with this that it is, yes, revised pages only. Okay, so then we're going to just check and make sure that this is working. It is, because up here in the header it turned to pink. Undo that. And then we just for good measure, we're always going to make sure that pages are now locked. They've been locked, but just to be sure, I always like to go relock the pages before I send it out. And then you're going to go send this pink working file out, and you are going to wait for the pink changes to come.